So it's a big weekend in Lincoln. How big is it?
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today.
All right, welcome in. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone. We are going to have predictions today on Nebraska USC. It's been a fun week, more of a normal week around Lincoln. 2 weeks ago, all we got in the wake of James Franklin being fired at Penn State was talk about Matt Rhule and his connection to Penn State. Last week, all we got was anger in the wake of Nebraska's flat performance at Minnesota. This week, we've actually had time to talk about USC and the matchup on Saturday night. We got the story about Sierra Wright, which is heartwarming in this USC week, and how he's become an unexpected leader for Nebraska, about to play against his former team. We got Dylan Raiola believing that Nebraska has a chance again for the second consecutive week at a do-over, so to speak, for an earlier loss. We got bowl speculation. We got John Butler calling for his defense to get all kinds of help, everything it can get from the fans. Matt Rhule making sure that everyone knows he wants no part of Mike Eckler's wild man act on the sideline after big special teams plays. It's been a fun week, wouldn't you say, Connor?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot going on, and I haven't even got into some of the things that you just mentioned. I love bull speculating, but I haven't bull speculated much this week, even though
the good thing is you have a whole month to do it.
I know, it's great. They're safe, and they're going to a bowl game, and the picture gets clearer and clearer week by week, I guess.
And then we got to the middle of the week, and the attention began to turn toward what might happen before Saturday night and the 6:30 p.m. kickoff as it relates to Matt Rhule and the future of his contract at Nebraska. And as we tape this, I check over at my inbox, which is open. As we tape this, there's been nothing on Thursday morning. There's been nothing this week. We're going to approach this show as if something does happen. What if something happens with Matt Rhule in a contract extension? And what I'm saying, when I say nothing has happened, it hasn't been announced by the University of Nebraska.
Unofficial.
So, right. There is nothing official on a contract extension. There's conversation, there's talk, there's lots of speculation. But we're going to get into what it means if it does happen, if the two parties come to a final agreement and Nebraska announces it. And we will hear from Matt Rhule on Thursday, previously scheduled, always on Thursday. Generally, it's a short 10 minutes or so with Matt Rhule on the day before of a Nebraska game. So if Rhule is extended this week before USC comes to town, and a whole big bunch of recruits are there to watch this game from the sideline, upwards of 50 recruits, I believe, and looking at the list that On3 put out on Wednesday, man, you got 5 stars up and down various classes. So, like, this is a significant thing. If Nebraska has locked up its coach, let's start with that. What would it mean for the Huskers as they recruit in primarily 2027 and 2028? We can talk about the 26 class too. We haven't talked about recruiting in a while, so maybe this is an opportunity for us to do this. But let's talk first about those younger players where the majority of the 4- and 5-star kids are still out there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everybody wants to hear, parents that come in want to hear that sort of security of, hey, this guy's going to be here and we're pointed in a certain direction and all those things. And I do think it probably means a lot for some 26 guys who are still, you know, curious at this point in time too. Nebraska's recruiting class is really light for 26, and it's ranked poorly at the moment. So I do think there was some eggs in the basket of, hey, let's see how this season goes and let's see if we can capitalize it even with this class at the end of it. Signing day is in December. So clock's running out on that. So there's a little bit of that. But then obviously, like you said, Mitch, there's big time guys coming in for 27 and 28 and beyond. And if this is their first impression, all the energy that would go into this weekend, and you add in a potential coach's, lockdown like extension, then that amps up things quickly, I think, just as far as everybody sort of moving in the right direction, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you're really talking about the juices flowing.
Yeah.
So on the 26 class, we'll briefly step away from this. Although it relates. If you extend your coach and you avoid your coach being a part of this Penn State conversation, then it relates to everything that's going on in the program. The 26 class is an interesting one, an interesting makeup for Nebraska, in that usually you're able to get a boost around the time that commits start to flow by landing a top quarterback. And Nebraska landed its quarterback very early in the recruiting process, like before the commits started to flow, and it was Dayton Raiola. And Nebraska is very much on board with wanting Dayton Raiola. And if you've watched Dayton Raiola's tape and you've watched some of the highlights that he's put out there from Buford, which is a top 5 high school team in the country, then you feel good about the future of Nebraska's quarterback position remaining in the hands of Raiola. But it prevented Nebraska from jumping up and getting, say, Jet Tamala. And I don't even know if he would have picked Nebraska over Alabama if the Huskers had put the full court press on him, or if Alabama even would have offered, how that all would have come together. But it would have meant something different for the way that the class came together. As it stands now, I think what they're going to do is kind of try to cherry pick some players at the end of this thing. I mean, you may have noticed, but there's a lot of big jobs open and a lot in flux in college football. And if you're committed to Penn State or LSU or Florida or Virginia Tech or UCLA or any number of jobs that may still come open over the next 30 days, then you have decisions to make ahead of signing day, and which is in early December. And you may be back on the market, and Nebraska may be able to add to its class. But mainly the newcomers ahead of the 2026 season, it's going to be a big year in the portal for Nebraska. It's going to have to be a big year in the portal. And the Huskers are young, so just like numbers-wise across the roster.
Not losing a ton.
So, yeah.
Not scheduled to lose a ton, I should say.
So all of those things have kind of come to mix together and make it so this 26 class right now is underwhelming. Has some good players, but it's underwhelming in terms of what the whole thing looks like. 27, totally different story, with Trey Taylor, the quarterback from Chicago, Torrey Pittman, the defensive back from Omaha, Matt Erickson, the offensive tackle from Omaha. And then they're going to try to continue to add to that thing. Nebraska has Ahmad Hudson, the 5-star tight end from Louisiana, coming back in this weekend. And the list just goes on. I mean, I'm looking at it in there, and there are more than 2027 targets, and then a bunch of 2028 guys, including a couple of 3 5-star linemen, 2 on the offensive side and 1 on the defensive side in 2028. These kids are sophomores in high school, and they're going to be on the sideline for Nebraska. So if you compare their visits with this news potentially that the head coach is there for the long term, and he's bouncing around the facility and saying, "I told you so," and fist bumping everybody, and like, we're all in on Nebraska, and the staff picks up on that energy. Like, it could be an electric kind of day for weekend for Nebraska.
Well, and one thing that we've talked about a lot this week is the fact that this big game, this giant game, is in November instead of September, like many of Nebraska's big games over the last decade. And that has an absolute, I mean, that is a huge part of this picture in recruiting as well. I mean, like I said, signing day is just a little over a month away. It's about 6 weeks away at this point for 26 guys. But just the later you make an impression, the closer it is to that point where the player is going to make their decision. And here we are in, Saturdays will be November 1st. And, Nebraska has a chance to leave a lasting impression with all of this energy that they have, kind of stacked up and ready to release this weekend, whether it be on the field or in the recruiting game or the other stuff that goes around the program as well, like, retaining your coach or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think that's another added bonus to Nebraska being in the picture late in the season. It's something that we haven't talked about. They are in the picture right now, and that matters in recruiting too.
How about game day and the game day environment? Because we talked early this week about how it didn't have the same feel as Colorado last year, and part of that is because the Nebraska fans were out for blood, very much out for blood, and we saw that against Miami in 2014. This week, you would like to see a situation where the fans. I heard you talking about this on your show, Connor, this week, and I thought it was a great point, and maybe on Tuesday, about how the fans fed the players energy. The fans built energy into the players last year against Colorado, and that was such a factor in Nebraska jumping to a 28-0 halftime lead. And while the fans might be great on Saturday night, it looks like it's going to be more of a situation where the players will have to, the team will have to feed the fans' hunger, like the reverse. Could be just as loud, but maybe if this contract extension thing gets done, that changes the equation a little bit, and it comes more from the seats at the stadium. Do you think?
I imagine it's trending this way. I can't wait to see what it looks like on Saturday night. But we've mentioned this game a couple times, mentioned games like this a couple times, but the one that always comes to my head is right before what would have been Frost's first game, where you walk into you walk down on field level, or you walk into the bowl before the game starts, and it just like it comes over you like a wave. You're like, it's electricity. You could kind of feel it, right? I wonder if all of that, and then getting if there is some news on a contract extension, if you get that provides the sort of boost to create that environment on Saturday night. I think it's already going to be really good and unique, and the blackout and all that stuff. Night game, Memorial Stadium, and it's fantastic. You have a chance to get all these different monkeys off your back. But yeah, I think that could 100% tip the scales on how it feels in there on Saturday night.
I think so. I think that has the difference. That has the potential to be the tipping point on this, and it's gonna be lit. It's gonna be electric. It's
gonna be lit.
No matter what. New contract for the head coach or not, like, it's going to get revved up before kickoff. But I'm with you in that news about this could be the determining factor to put it over the top and make it like it was. The same kind of vibe that we felt in the stadium last September before the Buffs came out on the field. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about what this could mean for Nebraska's NIL efforts, what it could mean in the locker room, and what it could mean for Troy Dannen. That is next.
But first, a word from the FanDuel Sportsbook. It is indeed Thursday. So if you're listening to this prior to Thursday evening, you have an opportunity to get in on some NFL action this evening. Ravens and Dolphins, which actually is a mildly exciting game. Lamar Jackson coming back right now. New customers can bet just $5. And if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Or let's say you even flip this on during the game. Live bets are an option for you on FanDuel. Anytime touchdowns, scores, same game parlays, whatever it might be, it's available for you on FanDuel. Quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to a football game. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet today.
All right, Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you. Thursday episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. We will have picks and predictions for the Huskers USC coming up in the third segment today. Mailbag coming on Friday. Get your questions to us. We expect it to be a lively session. Locked On NEB gmail.com. Thank you to everyone who contributes to that and makes that show a lot of fun every Friday. Okay. If Nebraska is able to pull this off and extend Matt Rhule beyond 2030, his contract as he signed it in 2022 takes him through the 2030 season. So been given this some thought over the last 24 hours or so. And, my anticipation if a new deal is signed is that it would probably roll it over for another 3 years. And so he'd have 8 seasons left on his deal, but we'll find all that out if and when Nebraska officially does something, if the two parties can come to an agreement. And if they do, what would it mean for Nebraska's NIL efforts? So Rhule on October 13th, the day after James Franklin was fired, we remember this, had an interesting press conference, talked about his love for Penn State, talked about his admiration for Pat Kraft, the athletic director at Penn State, and then was asked about what Nebraska needs to do to compete at the very top of college football. And Rhule had an answer prepared, immediately went into how Nebraska and its donor base need to be more unabashed in their willingness to put up big bucks for players in the NIL realm. So this means Nebraska promoting it, Nebraska encouraging its fans and donors to give more to NIL, and then action being taken from the people who can give the money. We're not talking about rev share. That's all the same, rev share across the board for all of these Big Ten schools. But where the difference comes in is in NIL giving, and we believe Nebraska to be a very competitive, top half of the Power Four for sure program in NIL resources, but not in the top 10. And Matt Rhule would like to see them in the top 10. Could this push Nebraska in that direction? Has it already made hay?
Well, I think so. And I think, you have to have a couple things. You have to have a lot of, much like the energy needs to be in the building on Saturday night. I mean, I think you have to have a lot of energy pushing forth that way. So I think it's one thing to say it out loud, and one thing to say like, hey, we need to do this. This is where I want to go. But nothing works better as far as getting people excited about the program than what, Mitch? Winning football games.
Yeah.
Winning football games. So yeah, I think it's a two-pronged deal. You have to check off that box as well. Nebraska's in a great position right now, but bringing it all back to this weekend, if you're able to pull this off, then yeah, it could be a big launch point for Nebraska's efforts going forward. Like, all right, there is real energy about this thing right now, and you've crossed this threshold that you previously, have been unable to cross. I mean, you have 28 straight losses to ranked teams. So, like, yeah, I think all of that has the potential to.
There is that thing out there.
Yeah, it has the potential to sort of all come together in this sort of like magical kind of weekend, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, there's a way to time all of this, and I think it was important for Matt Rhule to put out the call a couple of weeks ago and say, this is what we need. And if he has intended all along to stay at Nebraska, I do believe that it was better for him to say what he said on October 13th.
Yep.
And give people some things to think about. And then there comes a time also where you need to lock it in. And if this is the way that it works out, going back from early October through the end of October, and tomorrow is Halloween, end of October, and this thing is done, you could potentially look at this month and say that Nebraska played that game about as well as you possibly could to put people in position to then go give the money. You're right. The last and we'll take the what could have happened better? Well, Nebraska could have done better than 24-6 on the losing end at Minnesota, right in the middle of all of this. Yeah, that's a little blip that certainly could have been could have gone differently to make this all work out perfectly. But that will be largely forgotten if the next 48 hours plays out 72 hours plays out in the way that Nebraska is dreaming here on Thursday morning.
Doing sports talk every day in this state, you hear a lot. You hear from a lot of the detractors of the head coach, and so I have the great fortune of hearing from them every day. And what they will say is Nebraska, to what you just sort of just said, Mitch, the opposite. Nebraska has not played it perfectly. They have been played. Right. They have been played by the leverage that Matt Rhule had by being a candidate. And to that, I would say, who cares if Nebraska is using this as an opportunity, whether it be the leverage that the real leverage that he has, or if he doesn't have real leverage with the Penn State job, whatever you might think it is. If Nebraska takes this opportunity to invest heavily into its program and push the needle, push the envelope forward even further, then like what are we complaining about? Nebraska's going for it. Like that's what you want if this were to come to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, that gets close to the point of like suggesting that Matt Rhule and Troy Dannen are like working for opposite things, and Rhule's all right for himself, and like he's fully invested in Nebraska. Like if the day were to ever come where he left, like then yeah, that would change. But like while he's here, he's not working against what Dannen is working for. They're on the same team with this. So I understand like how those kind of theories can be born, but I believe them to be wrong in this situation. And I also believe that Matt Rhule has been a real viable, legitimate candidate at Penn State since October 12th when James Franklin was let go. And if he extends at Nebraska, then that's essentially out the window. Gave that some thought too over the last 24 hours about the possibility that, well, you're going to want to look at the liquidated damages. And I said that yesterday on the show. And it is important because right now it would cost another school $5 million to take Matt Rhule. If that number were to go down in a new contract, then I would certainly keep my eyes open. That would be a red flag. I don't think it's going to go down. If it goes up significantly, then great for Nebraska. If it stays about the same, all right. Look, Matt Rhule is not going to sign a deal with Nebraska at the end of October and then leave at the end of November. That would be a stain on his reputation and his record. Not to say that he's here forever, but for the job that he's potentially speculatively up for in the moment that led to the extension, he's not going to turn his back unless something catastrophic were to happen within the Nebraska program. Maybe you get a commitment of some sort here that leads to him extending, and then that goes away over the next 3 weeks, which, we certainly can't predict that. No, I mean, if he signs this, like Penn State is moving on.
Yep. And if Nebraska's putting it in front of them, they're protecting themselves a little bit as well. So yeah, I agree with you, Mitch. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We will dive into what do we think is going to happen. Nebraska and USC on Saturday night. We're back after this. But first, let's talk about Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. You can check out the Mazda lineup of vehicles for a fit that'll work for you. Mazda delivers confidence with every single ride. It has more IIHS Top Safety Plus pick awards than any other company as of August of 25. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every single model. Feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. With smooth handling and intuitive controls, it's easy to enjoy your time behind the wheel of a Mazda. And with all-wheel drive, standard in every crossover SUV, you will drive with confidence through just about every season. Like the athletes you watch, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Nebraska USC Saturday night on NBC. It is probably one of the top 3, 4, 5 games in the country this week, just as far as stakes are concerned. It is a college football playoff eliminator game. It takes prime time in NBC, and it takes prime time in really college football. The big noon game, by the way, this week is Ohio State Penn State. I think
also Georgia Florida week.
Yes, which they both lack a little bit of juice outside of that. So my guess would be Nebraska USC outrates or gets close to outrating Penn State Ohio State. It at least approaches that level, but we'll see. Sometimes
the Ohio State games, you're starting with like a base of 5 million viewers.
I know.
It's just their fan base is so huge. So I don't know. I think there's intrigue in that game, and we'll get to that game later. It's an intrigue for a completely different reason than you ever would have imagined a month or 2 months ago. Yeah, this is the time of year where when you have an active coaching carousel in September and October, and you get to the start of November games, and all of a sudden, the games don't mean what you thought they would have meant, and you're looking at a soggy kind of Week 10 schedule here when it looked great before the season began. Yeah. Now, people could have predicted the Florida thing, I believe, and maybe you wouldn't have thought that Georgia Florida this year was going to be what Georgia Florida has been in some years, but Penn State Ohio State, no way. This was one of the top 3 games of the college football season, and Ohio State's like a 3-touchdown favorite.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we all remember what it's like to throw an entire season away. Nebraska did it in September of 2022, and that did not feel great coming down the stretch. All right, here we go. Let's start with Dylan Raiola's passing yardage. We're going to set the over-under at 228.5. USC is allowing basically exactly that per game this year, 228.
Yeah, funny how that works. How that works. The number, will Dylan Raiola exceed the average that USC defensively allows? And this comes after a week where Nebraska packed it in against Northwestern. Dylan was under 200 yards through the air. He's had his lowest 2 passing number games of the season in these last 2 weeks against Minnesota and Northwestern. And that's maybe what you would expect against Minnesota and Northwestern when you take into account how those 2 teams play football and trying to limit possessions. This is not that team. This is USC, which plays a more wide open style. I took into account the weather when I thought about this. I don't think it's going to be that bad.
No, I don't think it'll have that much of an effect.
Yeah, I was outside last night and I saw that Jack Mitchell tweeted this, and I had just been outside taking my dog for his end of the night duties, and it was 41. It said on my watch. Then there was no precipitation. There was no wind. It didn't feel bad at all. Like, you could play football in that, and it's going to be a little bit warmer than that on Saturday night, a couple degrees. So if that wind is not a factor, I don't think the weather is a factor at all in the game. And I think USC can throw it around. I think Nebraska can throw it around. I'm going to say over for Dylan Raiola on the 228.5.
Yeah, it's going to be close. I mean, I think Nebraska will try and want to play, ball control a little bit in this game, and they'll lean heavily on Edwin Johnson. But yeah, let's just take a slide over here for Dylan, over 228.5. All right, Jaden Mayava is the other quarterback. We're going to put his number at 251.5. USC as a team is throwing for 326 per game, which is number 1 in America.
And Mayava is number 2 among all quarterbacks, I believe. He's at 311 per game, so little mop-up time for his backup. Not in this game, you would expect.
247 is the highest Nebraska's allowed all year, I believe, to Malik Washington.
Yeah. All right. USC is going to come out and try to throw it, and I think it'll have some success. But I'm going to say under. I'm going to go with the under on 251.5, slightly under that. I think Nebraska will cook something up with the pass rush, find a way, whether it's through blitzes, which leads you to be open to big plays in the pass game that Nebraska has not allowed this year. The big plays have all been in the run game. So I'm going to say Mayava stays under, and USC sees coming into this game that it may have an opportunity to run the ball, and it may not be as pass heavy as the Trojans have been in some games this season.
I think it's all about game control. I mean, Nebraska, if they could get up early in this game and then grab a turnover or two, Maeva will put it in harm's way from time to time. But man, he has really good receivers, and they have a good running game regardless of if they have their top back at this point. So it's really a fascinating one, and Nebraska has to sort of play it on their terms. With that being said, I do think it's just probably a smarter play for me anyway to take the over for Maeva in this case. But I could see a world certainly where he's under. Let's go to Emmett Johnson. Carries and yardage. We'll pick two numbers here. 25.5 carries for 107.5 yards. Let's give me an over and an under for both.
I'm actually going to take under on both. Logic would say that with more plays in this game, that he might exceed the 27 that he had last week against Northwestern. But I think Nebraska is going to be very keen on diversifying the offense and having a game plan that includes a lot of different pieces. So under for Emmett on the 25.5, and I'll go under also on the 107.
If Nebraska's playing from behind, this is under on both. If Nebraska's playing from ahead, I think it's over on both. And so let's just play it out as if Nebraska gets a nice start that they dreamed of. And so let's say over on both. Emmett has a nice day, and he gets a big carry share on his shoulders. Barney, Key, Hunter combined, Nebraska's top three receivers, their combined receptions number, we'll put it at 10.5.
Yeah, Barney and Key have been quiet the last few weeks. Hunter has largely been up and has emerged as the WR1. I'm going to say they go over. I went under on Emmett's production. I think that 10.5 is not a huge number for Nebraska's top three receivers. I will say over.
Yeah, me too. USC, they average 3 defensive sacks a game. Nebraska gives up a bunch. Will they go over their average of 3 sacks per game?
Yeah, I'm going to say they do.
Yeah, I think if you can handle it on a couple drives, and likely these sacks are making you punt the ball away, so you can't have it happen too much. But yeah, I think that's a halfway decent number. You get 4, and you could still kind of weather that storm a little bit. So I'll take the over. Who wins the turnover margin?
Nebraska's +3 on the season through 8 games. USC is +2 on the season through 7 games. So they're about the same in their ability to create and prevent their own create turnovers on the opposition side and prevent their own. I will say the question is, will Nebraska win the turnover margin? I will say no. I think it's going to be even on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think Nebraska will probably need to be +1 in this game in order to at least +1 in order to win it, just because, like I said, game control, ball control, stuff like that. But yeah, even or worse seems like a pretty decent bet. So I'll say no, Nebraska will not win. Will they score a non-offensive touchdown, defensive or special teams? Shout out Mike Eckler.
If they do, then that's a game changer. I'm going to say no. Nebraska does not pull that off this week.
Yeah, no, I don't think you could bake that into the pie yet for Nebraska. But you're right; it would be a massive game flipper if they're able to do that. And then, do you have something cooked up here on what we might see on Saturday night? Oh no, I want
to know what you think.
Yeah, I have been sort of like just toying with the idea, and I haven't asked anybody about this, or I don't know anything. But like, what if they really went all in on the blackout and all the red parts of the football field are black on Saturday night? Mm-hmm. God, I would love to see that. That'd be great. I don't know, but I've been toying around with the idea in my head all week. And they did say that they were going to go all out and there are going to be some special surprises and stuff like that. So I just wonder what that looks like.
Yeah, I put this on here and now I'm struggling to come up with a prediction of my own. I mean, I like yours about paint the field black. Nebraska has been playing that parts of that Rolling Stones song underneath the videos that it put up this week. So I don't know if that means something or if it's just a very good song with black in the title. I think it'll be something with the tunnel walk. Maybe they change. They're not going to get rid of the main song, but maybe we hear some AC/DC Back in Black when the Huskers are getting ready to come out like as a prelude to the normal music. I'll go with that. I think it's going to be some kind of a musical, and it could be Painted Black by the Rolling Stones as well. Maybe they'll play both of them.
Maybe. And let's make a pick. Nebraska is a 6.5-point dog at home against 23rd ranked USC on Saturday night.
Yep. 35-27 USC. That's my pick.
I'm going 27-21 USC. I think Nebraska what I'm worried about the most is Nebraska's lack of ability to put the ball in the end zone. And they have to, when they cross the 40, they got to score. They got to score points. And I just don't trust them enough in those areas to be able to do it. Maybe they have something special cooked up. I think they're there, but just fall a little bit short in a game script way on Saturday night.
The question I've got Nebraska kicking 2 field goals in this game, and that being the difference is that USC is better in the red zone. 28-27 late in the game, USC gets a touchdown. Nebraska has an opportunity to go win it and or tie it with a 2-point conversion and doesn't get that done. If we watch this game and things offensively are coming hard for Nebraska, like the Minnesota game, not that hard, but if you're seeing Nebraska have to make Dylan Raiola have to make play after play after play to move the ball down the field, then that's a sign that this game is going to go the way that I think it might. And that's with USC just having better talent at the end. Big Ten game of the week. We talked about this. Penn State at number 1, Ohio State. Buckeyes are a 20.5-point favorite, 11 a.m. on Fox.
Yeah, I'm going to take Ohio State to cover in this one. I don't think Penn State scores more than 7. So
yeah. Young quarterback for the Nittany Lions. Drew Aller's out. Penn State's a bit of a mess. Coming off that loss against Iowa. I like Ohio State to win by 35 points.
And then let's do Vandy in Texas, which is a consequential game in the SEC. It's in Austin. Texas is a 2.5-point favorite.
Yeah, number 9 Vanderbilt, number 20 Texas. So
Crazy.
I saw those rankings not looking like that here in week 10. That's 11 a.m. on ABC. Texas, give me the horns to win this one by more than a field goal.
Vandy to cover the 2.5.
Diego Pavia.
And likely, I don't like Diego Pavia really, but let's just say he gets it done at Texas.
You just said it indicated differently.
Now
you love Diego Pavia.
Diego Pavia lover. All right. That's it for us today. We will talk to you in the Mailbag Show tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big Ten. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.